Crash Team Racing is almost 20 years old. To say it has been a long time since the original game launched on the original PlayStation would be an understatement. In this industry, 2 decades is ancient history. Activision tapped Beenox to handle development of the remaster, and after spending many laps on some classic courses, our Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled review is finally crossing the finish line. More glorious pixels. Crash and team look as good as they ever have, just as was the case with the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy. Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled scales well up to 4K, and runs at a locked 30 frames per second, which is just fine when you consider the original release ran at that rate, and probably much slower in times of high on-screen visual effects or in split screen. One thing that will be obvious to veterans of the series is that Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled hasn't changed the core experience of the racing mechanics. Handling is different depending upon character, as opposed to karts. Drifting and boosting involves the same sort of awkward mechanics as in the original release, but it is relatively easy to get the hang of. Everything may look more detailed, but it all feels the same as before. A tough challenge. Games from 2 generations ago were tough. Crash Team Racing Nitro-Fueled has brought along the same difficulty as in the original release. For the main campaign, this means that progression can only occur when the player wins a race. A third or even second place finish won't cut it. This form of difficulty is a double-edged sword. While it's faithful to the original release, oftentimes winning a race comes down to the luck of the pickup draw, and sometimes the game feels unfair in its treatment of the player when they're winning. On the other hand, if the distance between first place and the rest of the racers is large enough, most items will not affect the leader. So, knowing a particular course's layout can help to tilt things in the player's favor. There are 2 main options for the campaign that the player can choose from: Normal and Nitro-Fueled. Nitro-Fueled allows for players to play as any unlocked character, racing with any unlocked kart, customized or otherwise. There are even 3 difficulty levels this time around, so for those who conquered the original, they can set up a modest challenge for themselves by cranking it up to hard. It seems that the normal difficulty level is what the original Crash Team Racing launched with, while the hard setting is very punishing. Expect to be tossed around by the CPU as you jockey for position, and replay levels that you missed winning by a hair, or by a lot.